Hello, everybody. I am ASMR Reality, and tonight we are going to discuss Friends. I heard something some time ago called the lonely chapter, and the lonely chapter is the period of time between when you have walked away from the friends you had before, the friends that were holding you back, the friends that did not align with your worldview and were not going anywhere and were dragging you down. And you walked away from those people, and you weren't fully developed where you fit in with a new set of friends and had fully developed new relationships of people that were like-minded and on a similar path as you are. And that period in between those sets of friends we call the lonely chapter. And I think for most of us, it's a necessary journey that we have to take. It's like maybe your friends are still going out to clubs, to bars, they're still drinking, and you're giving it up because you're working out, you're working on your body, you're reading more, you're working more, you're focusing on your long-term success, and they're still focusing on temporary pleasures, and they're living day to day, and they're racking up credit card debt, they're maybe drinking and driving. They're doing things that, if you were doing them, would definitely harm your chances for moving yourself forward. And you have to walk away from that. Now, I'm not saying you have to, make a point to tell your friends, hey, I don't want to see you anymore. What's going to happen is, if you start moving your life in a different direction, they will see it and either want to do things, you'll pull them up with you, or they'll pull you back down. There's really no other way. One of those two things typically happens, and you see it a lot in, I've read stories about where, basketball players, born in the ghetto, gets out, does real good, is disciplined, starts playing ball, comes back home, and one of his friends ends up killing him because of envy, because of jealousy. It's happened so many times. There's so many stories. They've been on the news. There are documentaries made about them. And another one is the football player from New England Patriots. I forget his name. I'm sure one of you guys know who I'm talking about. Let me look it up real quick. So, New England Patriot in prison. What was his name? Aaron Hernandez. So, here was a guy that made his way out of that lifestyle, but he just could not get away from that old group of friends, and he ended up killing himself in prison. It's just a sad, sad story of somebody that never fully walked away from that old life. He made it out, but he couldn't break free of that old lifestyle. And I think it's just something that we have to do. I have had several friends in the past that tried to do the same thing as I was working my way up. They would criticize me for working so much. They would just make fun of me because I didn't want to go out, and, oh, you're going to stay at home and read, okay, call me a FAG, and I took the criticism. But today, now that we're all 50 years old, I guarantee you, if I talked to them, they would tell me you were right and we were wrong. I have friends that are dead due to drinking and driving accidents. And I have friends that are just still dirt poor, which is where I came from, which most of my friends were dirt poor along with me, because I grew up in a depressed area, and we all pretty much started with the same lifestyle. None of us had money. None of our parents had money, And so, again, I'm not saying that you have to walk away from them and that you have to say, I never want to see you again, but you cannot let them drag you down. You have to try to bring them up with you and let them know what you're doing. And likely what's going to happen is you guys are going to grow apart, because as you grow up and they don't, they're not going to feel comfortable around you. They're going to feel inferior. And nobody wants to be around somebody that makes them feel inferior. And so that's what will happen. I've got two friends right now. One friend, and these guys are both around my age. One friend has a $100,000 Nissan GTR. He paid $100,000 for it, and then he went out and spent $65,000 on modifications, like a custom exhaust, like a bigger supercharger. Just did all sorts of modifications to it to make it even faster than it already was, which is already crazy fast. It's one of the fastest cars made. He just this year spent $20,000, maybe $25,000 on remodeling his kitchen, which his kitchen was already beautiful. He lives in a huge house by himself. All of his clothes are like high-end name brand clothes. Like, he has a Canadian Goose coat that he wears. I think he said it was like $400. And of course it's got a big badge that says Canadian Goose on it. Everything he wears is high end, but he is in massive debt. He has his car payment, his house payment, he has credit cards from buying all this high end clothing and stuff. But if you were to see him, you would think, God, that dude is rich. But if he sold everything, if he sold all his clothes, all his cars, sold his house, I think he would still owe money. So his net worth is negative. But to look at him, you would think he's just filthy rich. Now, my other friend, and this guy has a YouTube channel. You can look him up. His YouTube channel is called Edward PhD. Edward PhD. So if you look at him in that, you can see he buys his clothes on Amazon or Walmart. He drives a 2004 Toyota Camry that has 400,000 miles on it. He rents a bedroom from a friend of his for $300 a month. But currently he has about $2.4 million saved. Now, this guy is about my age, and I keep telling him, I'm like, Ed, if you don't start spending money, if you don't start living a little bit, it's going to get harder and harder and harder for you to do it. And with my other friend, I tell him, dude, you've got to stop spending. You're going to reach a day where you don't want to work anymore and you're going to want to retire. You've got to start being a little bit more financially conservative with your money, because, it's not going to be long. I mean, look, you close your eyes, you're 50. You're going to close your eyes again, you're going to be 65. Everybody else is going to be retired, and you're not going to be able to live on a $2,000 Social Security check, not with your lifestyle. But these guys are close to me, and we all try to encourage each other, but none of us tries to bring each other down. And I feel like I'm kind of in the middle of those two guys, where I'm smart with my money and I have a lot of money saved for my retirement, but I also choose to live today. I have a house that's paid for. I have two cars that are paid for. One's a 21, one's a 22. A 2021, one's a 2022. They're both Toyotas, so they're nothing flashy. The Land Cruiser might be considered flashy, but most people don't know that it's expensive. They just look at it and think it's a Toyota SUV. So I'm not trying to be flashy with what I have, but I like to have nice things. I've worked hard, and I want to enjoy what I have today. Something could happen to me tomorrow, and that's where I feel like with Ed, I worry that something's going to happen to him, and he's never enjoyed a bit of his money. Now, he gets a sense of security from having that money, and he says, one day I will, one day I will, one day I will. But he keeps moving the goalpost. Like, he keeps saying, I remember a time where he said, all I need is $2 million, and then I'll get a new car. I remember when he told me, once I get the Camry to 300,000 miles, I'll get a new car. Here it is at 4. Now he's saying, once I get it to 500,000 miles, I'll get a new one. Now, if I had a choice on which guy to be, I'd rather be the guy with the Camry, because I need that sense of financial security as well. I need to be secure for my future, to feel comfortable. I could not deal with the day-to-day stress of having all that debt and all those payments. So, but it does show that I'm not saying that, like, you can only be friends with people that are exactly like you, but you have to choose your friends wisely. People that are success oriented. My best friend in the world is an 80-year-old retired attorney, and he's been such a source of wisdom over the years. I spend more time with him than any of my other friends, because I just love listening to his stories and his life advice and his encouragement, and all he wants is what's best for me. And he's been wonderful for my life, and he has a couple different houses, and that he lives in. They're both in Indiana, but one is like a getaway house for him, where it's in the middle of nowhere. It's actually his family's homestead, when his family back in like the 20s or 30s were farmers, and they just lived in this house, and he's fixed it up, and it's like literally in the middle of nowhere. So he goes there on the weekends and just kind of disconnects and reads. He doesn't have the internet there. And then he has a really nice house in Indianapolis. And then he has rental properties. And he has 2 cars. So I've kind of tried to mimic my life after his, because I like his life. I like the peaceful life that he has. I like that. So, but when I look back, when I was a teenager and in my early 20s, and I was, going to the bars and hanging around those types of people, I don't even associate with them anymore. And like breaking free from that and getting this newfound set of friends that I have, it's a different life. When I worked for the Toyota dealership, the owner of the dealership was the richest guy I ever knew. And even though he was my boss, I worked hard to befriend him. And even though I don't work for him anymore, I go see him. I go to dinner with him and his wife, and he's a true friend. His mother recently died, and he called me to sell her house. So, just being around people like that, like-minded people who have the life that you want, that's who you've got to start being around. If you want a better life, you have to hang around people that want the same thing as you. Even family, if they don't encourage you, I would never tell anyone to disown their family, but you've got to to spend less time around them if they don't uplift you, if they don't encourage you, if they don't make you feel good. You have to spend less time around them. You have to do the things and be around the people that make you better if you're going to succeed. It's just a requirement. I have had a couple friends, like, the title of this video is True Friends Stab You in the Front. And I say that because a true friend, just like with me and the guy that has the Nissan GTR and all the flashy stuff, I tell him all the time, bro, you've got to do this, because I know this. He probably hates hearing it from me, but I know this: when that day comes and that light switch finally goes off in his head, he's going to hear my voice, and he's always going to know that I did the right thing by telling him what to do. Same thing with Ed. He's going to know that I told him, bro, it's going to get harder and harder. You've got to break free of this miser mentality you have, because I see him getting worse, not better. So that's when you have a group of friends that way, you have to be honest with them, and I want them to be honest with me. I want the criticism. There's been so many times like that. My old attorney friend that I mentioned, the countless things that he has told me. He said, Derek, you really need to do this. And even though I was like, you gotta be kidding me, but I did it. When I was younger, I wanted like the trophy car. I wanted a Ferrari when I was younger, because I wanted to prove to the world that I made it, right? I wasn't trying to prove it to me. I wanted the outside accolades. I wanted people to look at me. I made it. I'm somebody. But I would guess if I did that, I could be dead, because those things are dangerous. They're so fast. I could be dead. I could have got carjacked because somebody saw me, or just jealous and maybe just shot me just because, So who knows what could have happened if I wouldn't have heeded better advice. So I think it's important that we have those people that we can turn to, that we know and understand and can accept that they are wiser and smarter than we are. Because if you don't have people like that, how are you going to learn? It's just difficult. Yeah, you can listen to people on the internet, and try to take advice from people like that. But it's much easier when you have that support network that you're close to, that you can just pick up the phone and call at any time and, get good advice. And, but yeah, we just have to be careful. I had a friend one time, and I've told this story on a past video, but it was right when I was starting in real estate, and he had told me that he would let me sell his house. And so I had gotten started on the process of getting his house, getting it listed for sale, and I had scheduled the photographer, and the photographer was scheduled for like 10 o'clock one day, and he called me at like 8:30 that morning, and he said, hey, I need to postpone the pictures. And I'm like, why? It's a beautiful day, the sun's out. And he said, well, I was supposed to get my yard mowed last night, and he wasn't able to come, and there's frost on the ground this morning, and I don't want to mow with frost on the ground because it can hurt the grass, which I've never heard that before, but maybe it does. So I said, okay, no problem, I'll reschedule. What day do you want to reschedule? He said, I'll let you know. I'm like, okay. So I called the photographer, said, hey, I'm sorry, but I need to reschedule today. He doesn't want to, he wants to wait till he can mow his yard. So I canceled the appointment and just waited to hear back from him. I didn't hear from him later that day, and I didn't hear from him the next day. So the very next day I called him and I said, have an idea when you'd want to reschedule that? And he said, man, I really need to talk with you. Well, when he said that, I knew what he was about to do. And he did. He fired me. And I said, man, I was brand new in real estate. It was going to be my very first listing. And I'm like, bro, I've already told my bosses. I'm like, I'm brand new there. You can't do this to me. And he said, I can't take the chance. Because you're so new, I can't take the chance on losing money on this house. And I'm like, he knew that like I was like the maestro of Toyota sales. And I'm like, I was a great salesperson. He knew that I had turned the smallest Toyota store in the state of Indiana into the largest Toyota store in the state of Indiana in a matter of, it took me 20 years, but I did it. And not only that, he had started a janitorial company years ago, like 10 years prior to that. And he couldn't get an account because he didn't have any history of a business. He had a brand new business. So he came to me and he said, look, is there any way you could let me do the janitorial work at the Toyota store? And I'm like, man, there's already a company doing it. And I didn't own the place. You know, I was the general manager, but so I had some input. I said, let me see what I can do. So I went to the owner and I said, look, here's what I've got. This guy, I know he'll do good. I know it's kind of an odd request, but would you be okay? He said, yeah, sure, go ahead. So it took like a month or two, but he got that account. So I got him his very first account as at the Toyota store. And then this guy turns around and does this to me. So the interesting thing is maybe this probably was, he had been my friend for 30 years. And probably when I was 19 years old, he would have been like 25, 26. Again, he was an older guy I looked up to because he was a little further along than me. He had told me this story, and it was about a turtle and a scorpion. And he said that the turtle and the scorpion were in the desert, and the monsoon rains were coming. And the rain kept coming and coming, and slowly but surely the desert became flooded. Well, the turtle can swim and walk on dry land, so the turtle was fine. He was enjoying it, and he was just floating around. But this scorpion was on an island that was slowly being overtaken by the water. The turtle looked over, and he could see that it wasn't going to be long, and that scorpion was going to be drowned. So the scorpion yelled out to the turtle, hey turtle, can you help me? Can you give me a ride over to the bigger island over there? And the turtle thought to himself, and he said, I shouldn't do it because he's dangerous. But then he thought to himself and he said, but if I'm helping him, surely he won't sting me if all I'm doing is helping him. And the turtle had empathy. And so he said, I think it'll be okay. So the turtle floated over to the scorpion, and right when the scorpion jumped off, the island went away underwater. So just at the last second, the turtle saved the scorpion's life. And so as they're floating over to the higher ground, the scorpion is praising the turtle and thanking him so much for what he did for him. Mr. Turtle, I can't believe you saved me. I owe you for life. I appreciate you so much. And the turtle felt good getting the praise and knowing he was helping someone in need. And then right as they got to the shoreline, the scorpion flipped his tail underneath the turtle's shell and stung him and jumped off. And the turtle sat there knowing it was about to die. He looked at the scorpion and he said, I don't understand, scorpion. All I did was help you. Why? Why would you do this? And the scorpion looked at him and he said, hey, you knew I was a scorpion. That guy that fired me is the guy guy that told me that story, and I believe that many years ago, 30 years ago, he was telling me, be careful, I'm a scorpion. So just know that there's scorpions out there. Be very, very careful about the company you keep. I appreciate you watching.